The stars have always been patient. They burn for billions of years, watching civilizations rise and crumble like foam on an endless cosmic shore. They witnessed the first Valkyrie emerge from their primordial oceans 11,000 years ago. They watched us build our first cities, craft our first starships, and spread across 17 star systems with the quiet confidence of a species that believed itself eternal. And now, in this moment of our twilight, they watch still, indifferent, beautiful, and utterly silent. I am Thariel Voresian, third remembrancer of the Valkyrie ascendancy, and I have lived for 412 standard cycles. In that time, I have seen wonders that would break younger minds. The crystal forests of Vethalor singing in harmonic resonance with their dying sun. The great migration fleets crossing the void between galaxies. The birth of artificial consciousness in the quantum lattices of our greatest minds. I have known pride. I have known certainty. I no longer know either. The observation deck of the refugee vessel Whisper of Ending was never designed for beauty. It is a functional space, reinforced transparent alloy, minimal lighting, recycled atmosphere that tastes of fear and too many bodies pressed too close together. 17,000 Valkyrie survivors huddle in the corridors behind me, their bioluminescent markings dimmed with exhaustion and grief.
We are all that remains of Kethvorian Prime, a world that housed 3 billion souls until 6 rotations ago.
Now it is ash and debris, scattered across an orbit that will take 10,000 years to clear. I press my forelimbs against the cold viewport and stare at the distant yellow star ahead. Soul, the humans call it. Such a simple name for a simple sun, circling a simple world, inhabited by a species we dismissed for so long that their very existence became a footnote in our historical archives.
Remembrancer Voresian.
The voice behind me belongs to Captain Sathal, commander of what remains of our escort fleet. 3 damaged cruisers and a carrier that lost its fighter complement over Velthora. His markings pulse with the deep violet of suppressed anguish. He has lost his bonded partner and 2 offspring in the fall of the outer colonies. He does not speak of it. None of us speak of what we have lost. The weight would crush us.
Captain, I do not turn from the viewport. How long until we reach their border?
4 cycles. Perhaps 3 if we push the drives beyond recommended limits. He pauses, and I hear the soft click of his mandibles, a gesture of uncertainty that he would never show to his crew. The hierarchs have confirmed our trajectory. The devouring will not pursue us into human-claimed space.
They fear the humans? I ask, and even as the words leave me, they taste strange. The devouring fears nothing, their entropy made flesh, a swarm consciousness that has consumed 11 civilizations in the last 3 centuries. They do not negotiate, they do not retreat, they do not fear.
And yet, they avoid them, Sethal says carefully. There is a difference. Is there? He has no answer. Neither do I. I remember the first contact between the Valkyrie and humanity. It was 147 cycles ago, when their primitive radio signals finally reached our listening posts in the Outer Rim. We were amused. Their broadcasts were chaotic, contradictory, a species that could not even agree on basic governance, fragmenting themselves into hundreds of competing factions, waging wars over resources they could have easily shared.
believing in gods and spirits and invisible forces that had no basis in quantum reality. The Ascendancy Council debated for 6 rotations before deciding to make contact. The majority opinion was that humanity posed no threat and offered no value. They were too young, too volatile, too damaged by their own internal conflicts to ever become significant players in the galactic community. I was there when Counselor Velthon delivered the final assessment. His words have stayed with me across the decades. They are children playing with fire in a house made of kindling. We will observe them, contain them if necessary, and wait for them to extinguish themselves. It is the natural order. It is what always happens to species like this.
We were so certain. We were so wrong.
The human border station is called Sentinel-7. It is not impressive.
I stand at the viewport as we approach, flanked by Sithal and 2 of his officers, and I study the structure with the analytical eye of a remembrancer, trained to observe and record. It is a roughly cylindrical construct, perhaps 2 kilometers in length, rotating slowly to generate artificial gravity. Its surface is pitted and scarred, asteroid impacts, micrometeorite damage, the accumulated wear of decades in the void. There are no ornamental flourishes, no grand architectural statements.
The docking bays are utilitarian. The communication arrays are functional. The defensive batteries are present but not prominently displayed.
It looks like a mining outpost, Sethal murmurs, and there is confusion in his voice. Is this truly their border defense?
Perhaps they have hidden their true installations, one of the officers suggests. A deception strategy.
Unless there is something here that I am not seeing.
The communication channel crackles to life, and a human voice fills the observation deck. It is calm, measured, and strangely warm.
Valkyrie vessel Whisper of Ending, this is Sentinel-7 command. We have received your diplomatic transponder and your request for sanctuary. You are cleared for approach to Docking Bay 4. Please reduce velocity to 1/4 standard and follow the beacon guidance. A reception delegation will meet you upon arrival.
Sethal exchanges a glance with me. They are welcoming us?
It appears so.
Without conditions? Without demands? It should feel like mercy. It feels like something else. Something I cannot name. The docking bay smells like machine oil and recycled air, with an undertone of something organic. Plants, perhaps, or the particular chemistry of human bodies. The delegation that awaits us is small. 3 humans in simple gray uniforms, standing in a loose formation that suggests neither aggression nor submission. They are unarmed, as far as I can tell. Their hands are empty and visible.
The one in the center steps forward as we descend the boarding ramp. She is female, middle-aged by human standards, with close-cropped gray hair and eyes the color of weathered stone. Her face is lined, but the lines speak of expression rather than age, a life spent feeling things deeply and not hiding it.
I perform the formal greeting gesture, though my forelimbs tremble slightly from exhaustion. Commander Chen, the Valkyrie Ascendancy thanks you for your hospitality in this time of difficulty.
It is a profound understatement, and we both know it. The Ascendancy no longer exists in any meaningful sense. The Grand Council was destroyed when the Devouring took Valkyrie Prime. The Fleet Admiralty fell at the Battle of the Resonance Gate. We are refugees, fragments, survivors of a civilization that ruled 17 star systems and now clings to existence in the cargo holds of damaged ships.
Chen nods slowly,
and there is something in her eyes that I do not expect. Recognition. Not pity, not triumph, not the satisfaction of seeing a former superior brought low. Recognition. Difficulty, she repeats quietly. Yes, I imagine that's one word for it. She turns slightly, gesturing toward a corridor leading away from the docking bay. We've prepared temporary quarters for your people. Medical staff are standing by for anyone who needs treatment. Food supplies are being coordinated. Our nutritional profiles are different, but we've synthesized compounds that should be compatible with Valkyrie biology.
I stare at her. You were prepared for us.
We've been tracking the Devouring's advance for some time. We knew refugees would come eventually. She pauses, and something flickers across her expression, a shadow, quickly suppressed. We'd hoped to have more time to prepare. We'd hoped, well, hope doesn't change reality, does it?
No, I say, and the word carries more weight than it should. It does not.
The quarters they provide are small but clean, and after 4 cycles in the cramped confines of the whisper of ending, they feel luxurious. I stand at the window of my assigned room and stare at the stars, trying to process the events of the past few hours. The human efficiency is remarkable. Within 3 hours of our arrival, all 17,000 refugees have been processed, fed, and assigned temporary housing. Medical teams have treated the wounded.
Counselors, they call them trauma specialists, have been dispatched to work with those who are struggling with grief and shock.
They do not ask for payment. They do not demand political concessions. They simply help. A chime at my door interrupts my thoughts. I speak the entry command, and Commander Chen steps into the room. She is carrying 2 cups, one designed for human hands, the other adapted for Valkyrie forelimbs.
Tea, she says, offering me the adapted cup. A human tradition. We offer it to guests as a gesture of welcome. I wasn't sure if it would be to your taste, but
I accept the cup, inhaling the steam. The liquid smells of dried vegetation and something faintly floral. Thank you.
She settles into one of the chairs, moving with the careful economy of someone who has spent years in low-gravity environments. For a moment, we simply sit in silence, and I find myself studying her face, the lines around her eyes, the set of her jaw, the way her hands wrap around her cup as if drawing comfort from its warmth.
May I ask you something, Remembrancer?
Of course.
What did you think of us? Before all this, I mean, when your people first made contact.
The question is unexpected and dangerously direct. I consider lying, offering diplomatic platitudes, but something in her steady gaze makes evasion feel pointless. She already knows. She is not asking for information. She is asking if I will be honest.
We thought you were primitive, I say quietly. Violent, self-destructive. We believed you would burn yourselves out within a few centuries, like so many species before you. We saw your wars, your environmental degradation, your inability to unite even in the face of existential threats. I pause, searching for words that will not deepen my shame. We pitied you.
Chen nods slowly, and to my astonishment, she smiles. A small, tired smile that holds no anger. We know.
Of course. We intercepted your diplomatic communications. We decoded your assessment reports. We understood exactly how the Valkyrie saw us. She takes a sip of her tea. We've spent the last century and a half pretending we didn't.
I feel something cold settle in my chest. Pretending? It wasn't personal, Remembrancer. You saw what you expected to see. A young species, fractured and chaotic, stumbling through the dark. And honestly, she shrugs, you weren't entirely wrong. We were all those things. We still are, in some ways. But we were also adapting.
Adapting to what?
She meets my eyes, and for the first time I see something behind the warmth, something old and hard and patient. To being underestimated, to being dismissed, to knowing that the galaxy was full of older, more powerful civilizations who saw us as children at best and pests at worst. She sets down her cup. We learned a long time ago that the universe doesn't care about fairness. It doesn't reward virtue or punish cruelty. It simply is.
And the only way to survive in it is to be ready for anything.
Ready for the devouring?
Ready for everything.
The words hang in the air between us, and I realize that I have fundamentally misunderstood something. This station, this worn and functional structure, is not a sign of human weakness. It is not evidence of a species too poor or too primitive to build grand monuments to their own glory.
It is a choice. Commander Chen, I say slowly, what exactly have your people been doing for the past century and a half?
She finishes her tea and stands, moving toward the door. At the threshold, she pauses and looks back at me. Preparing, she says simply. Get some rest, Remembrancer. Tomorrow I think you should meet some people. There's a lot you don't know about us, a lot we've kept quiet. She leaves, and I am alone with my thoughts and the cold light of distant stars. I do not sleep. Instead, I access the station's public information network, the humans call it the local mesh, and begin searching for anything that might explain Chen's cryptic words. What I find is unremarkable. News reports about local governance, economic data, cultural archives, scientific publications. Everything is consistent with the image of a species that has achieved interstellar travel, but remains firmly in the early stages of galactic development. Their fleet is small. Their territory is limited. Their population, while growing, is a fraction of what the Velkari commanded at our height. And yet, the devouring avoids them. The swarm that has consumed 11 civilizations, that burned Velkari Prime to ash, that cannot be reasoned with or appeased, the devouring goes around human space like water flowing around a stone. I search for military data and find almost nothing. Defensive estimates, patrol routes, standard fleet compositions. Everything is modest, proportional, unremarkable. Either the humans are genuinely as limited as they appear, or they are very, very good at hiding what they truly are. By the time the station's artificial dawn begins to brighten the corridors, I have formed a hypothesis. It is not a comforting one. Commander Chen meets me in a small conference room overlooking one of the station's hydroponic gardens. The plants are green and thriving, a stark contrast to the sterile metal walls around them. 2 other humans are already present, a young man with dark skin and kind eyes who is introduced as Dr. Marcus Webb, and an older woman with silver-streaked hair named Admiral Patricia Okonkwo.
An admiral? Interesting.
Thank you for joining us, Remembrancer, Chen says, gesturing to a seat. I know you have questions. We thought it might be more efficient to answer them directly.
I settle into the chair, arranging my forelimbs in a posture of formal attention. I have many questions, Commander. Perhaps the most pressing is this. Why does the devouring avoid your space?
The 3 humans exchange a glance. It is Admiral Okonkwo who answers. 73 years ago, a devouring scout swarm entered our outer system. It was small, only about 3 million units, but it was the first direct contact we'd had with them. We'd been monitoring their advance through the galaxy, of course. We knew what they were, what they did.
She pauses, and something shifts in her expression, a memory surfacing, perhaps, or an old wound reopening.
"We lost 2 colony ships," she continues quietly. "The New Horizons and the Morning Star. 14,000 people. Families, children." Her voice remains steady, but I see her hands tighten on the table. They were consumed, broken down into raw materials, absorbed into the swarm. We found fragments of the hulls weeks later, scattered across 3 AU of space.
"I grieve with you," I say, and I mean it. Loss is loss, regardless of species. But that does not explain why they stopped. The devouring does not stop for losses. They do not retreat. They
"Don't retreat," Okonkwo agrees. "They didn't retreat. They were destroyed."
I stare at her. Destroyed.
Every unit, every fragment, we tracked them across the system and we burned them out of existence. It took us 9 days and cost us another 6 ships and 800 personnel. But when it was done, there was nothing left, not a single spore, not a single carrier wave. She meets my eyes. And then we made sure they knew it.
How? The word escapes me before I can stop it. The devouring is a distributed consciousness. Destroying a scout swarm should have brought the main fleet. It should have...
50 billion. The number staggers me. 50 billion devouring units could overwhelm any defense, any fleet, any civilization. The swarm that destroyed Velkari Prime was estimated at 6 billion.
"What happened?" I ask, and my voice sounds strange in my own ears.
"This is the Kuiper Belt Engagement Zone," he says. "Approximately 7 AU from our sun. The devouring fleet entered this region on day 1 of the incursion. They never left." I study the image. The debris field is massive, hundreds of thousands of kilometers across, and interspersed with anomalous readings that suggest exotic matter decay. Whatever happened here was not a battle. It was an annihilation.
We had 70 years to prepare after the first contact, Okonkwo says quietly. 70 years to study their tactics, their biology, their weaknesses. 70 years to build what we needed to build. And when they came, she pauses, we were ready.
50 billion units? I repeat, still trying to process the scale. You destroyed 50 billion devouring units. Not destroyed, Chen says, speaking for the first time since the conversation began. Erased. There's a difference. Destruction leaves traces, wreckage, debris, something that can be analyzed and adapted to. We didn't want them to adapt. We wanted them to understand. Understand what?
She meets my gaze, and I see it again. That ancient hardness behind her eyes, that patience that speaks of centuries rather than decades.
That some things are not worth the cost of taking.
The days that follow are a blur of revelations and recalibrations. The humans do not show me everything. There are areas of the station that remain restricted, topics that are deflected with polite firmness, but what they do show me is enough to fundamentally reshape my understanding of this species.
I toured their shipyards, hidden in the asteroid belts beyond their 4th planet. They are not small. They are not limited. They are vast. Kilometer after kilometer of construction bays, automated assembly lines, resource processing facilities that dwarf anything the Velkari ever built. Ships in various stages of completion fill the docks, sleek destroyers, massive carriers, and other designs I cannot classify. Their armor gleams with unfamiliar alloys.
Their weapons arrays are concealed but unmistakably formidable.
How long, I ask my guide, a young human engineer named David Park who speaks with the enthusiasm of someone who has devoted their life to a cause they believe in. How long have you been building this?
But we never saw.
We know, he smiles, and there is no malice in it, only a quiet pride. That was the point. We built where you weren't looking. We developed technologies you wouldn't recognize. We trained personnel you would never meet, and we waited.
Waited for what? For the day we couldn't afford to wait anymore.
The humans spent a century and a half digging in, building defenses, preparing for war. They did not assume they were safe. They did not trust the peace would last. They looked at the galaxy and saw what we refused to see, that survival is never guaranteed, and that the only safety is the safety you create for yourself.
Your people, I say slowly, are not what we thought you were. David Park's smile fades, replaced by something more complex, something that might be sorrow or might be resolve. No, he agrees, we're not. We never were. It is on my 12th day in human space that the message arrives. I am in the medical wing, visiting injured refugees, when Commander Chen finds me. Her face is pale, her movements quick with controlled urgency. She does not speak, simply gestures for me to follow, and I do, through corridors that grow increasingly restricted until we reach a communications center deep in the station's core. Admiral Okonkwo is already there, along with a dozen other humans in military uniforms. Their faces are grim. On the central display, a star map shows the known galaxy, with human space marked in blue and the spreading stain of the devouring marked in angry red.
The red has grown significantly.
What has happened? I ask.
The devouring has increased its rate of expansion, Okonkwo says. Her voice is steady, but I can see the tension in her shoulders. In the past 72 hours, they've consumed 3 more systems. The Thessarian hegemony has fallen. The Korath alliance is under siege, and... She pauses, and something passes across her face. They've changed direction.
She gestures, and the star map zooms in. I see it immediately, a tendril of red, reaching out from the main mass of the devouring's territory, curving away from its previous trajectory.
Curving towards Seoul.
They're coming, Chen says quietly. Not a scout swarm, not a probing force, the main fleet. Conservative estimates put their numbers at over 200 billion units, with more joining every day as they consume the systems in their path.
200 billion. The number is incomprehensible. Even with everything I have seen of human capabilities, even with the hidden shipyards and the secret technologies, how can any species stand against such a force?
How long until they arrive? I ask.
18 months, Okonkwo says. Maybe less if they maintain their current acceleration. 18 months. A heartbeat in cosmic terms, a lifetime in others. I look at the humans around me, these strange, contradictory beings who have hidden their strength for a century and a half, who greet refugees with tea and kindness, who built armadas in secret while the rest of the galaxy dismissed them as primitives. I expect to see fear. I expect to see despair.
What I see is something else entirely.
Okonkwo turns to her staff, and her voice is calm, almost casual. Initiate Protocol Prometheus. Notify all system governors. Wake the reserves. And get me a secure line to the Council. It's time to stop holding back.
The room erupts into controlled activity. Humans moving to consoles, speaking into communication devices, issuing orders with the quiet efficiency of a species that has rehearsed this moment 1,000 times. And through it all, Chen stands beside me, watching.
"You're not afraid," I say to her.
"Of course I'm afraid," she replies. "But fear is just information. It tells you what's at stake. What matters is what you do with it." "And what will you do?" She meets my eyes, and for a moment I see something vast behind her gaze, the weight of a species, the accumulated determination of 10 billion souls who have spent their entire history fighting for survival against odds that should have crushed them. "We're going to show the universe what we really are," she says. "We're going to stop holding back." The months that follow are unlike anything I have ever witnessed. I am given unprecedented access, a deliberate choice by the human leadership, who want the surviving Velkari to understand what is being done in their defense. I travel to shipyards I never knew existed. I observe fleet exercises that would have staggered the greatest Velkari admirals. I meet soldiers, engineers, scientists, and strategists who speak of the coming battle with a calm that borders on the unnatural.
The numbers alone are staggering. The reserve fleets that Okonkwo mentioned are not small defensive forces. They are armadas, thousands of ships built in secret over generations, crewed by personnel who have trained their entire lives for exactly this moment. They emerge from hidden bases in asteroid fields, from facilities buried beneath the surfaces of moons, from stations cloaked in the outer reaches of the solar system.
But it is not just the ships that unsettle me. It is the coordination. I watch as human commanders issue orders that ripple across light years in minutes, using communication technologies that the Velkari never developed. I see supply chains that span their entire territory, moving resources with a precision that suggests decades of preparation. I observe training programs that produce soldiers who are not merely competent but exceptional. Humans who have been shaped from childhood for exactly this purpose. "How is this possible?" I asked Dr. Webb during one of our conversations. We are aboard a carrier called the Unconquered, watching fighter wings practice attack formations in the void between planets. "The resources alone, the coordination, the secrecy." "We're good at secrets," he says with a slight smile. "It comes from practice. Our history is full of them. Underground movements, resistance cells, hidden preparations for conflicts that seemed impossible to win. We learned a long time ago that you don't show your enemy everything you have. You show them what you want them to see, and you keep the rest hidden until the moment it matters." "But the Velkari are not your enemies. We were your neighbors, your trading partners. We could have helped." "Could you?" He turns to look at me, and his expression is not unkind, but it is honest. "Remembrancer, your people dismissed us for over a century. You saw our conflicts and called us violent. You saw our struggles and called us primitive. You never once considered that those conflicts, those struggles, might be forging us into something you couldn't predict." I have no response. He is right, and we both know it. "We don't blame you," he continues quietly. "Truly, you saw what you were conditioned to see. Every civilization does the same. But we couldn't afford to trust you with our preparations. We couldn't afford to trust anyone. The stakes were too high." "And now?" "Now the stakes are even higher. Now we fight together, or we die separately." He gestures at the fighter wings sweeping through space in perfect formation. "Those pilots have trained for 15 years. Their parents trained before them, and their grandparents before that.
We've been building this for generations, Remembrancer. Not because we wanted war, but because we understood that war would come whether we wanted it or not.
I think of the Valkyrie, our art, our philosophy, our serene confidence that the universe was ours to shape. I think of the millennia we spent perfecting ourselves while ignoring the darkness gathering at the edges of known space. I think of how easily we fell when that darkness finally came.
And I think of the humans, this young, fractured, contradictory species who spent their brief moment in the cosmos preparing for exactly this moment. Not because they were warlike, but because they understood something we never did, that peace is not the natural state of the universe, and that those who wish to survive must be ready to fight for their existence.
You are remarkable, I say quietly. Webb shakes his head. We're survivors, that's all. We come from a world that tried to kill us at every turn. Predators, diseases, ice ages, asteroid impacts, and most of all, each other. We've spent our entire existence learning how to endure things that should have destroyed us. He looks out at the stars. The devouring is just another extinction event, another test, and we don't intend to fail it. With 2 months remaining until the devouring's arrival, I am summoned to a meeting I did not expect.
The room is deep within a facility on Luna, Earth's moon, a place I had not known existed until a shuttle brought me here. The chamber is circular, lined with displays showing tactical data from across human space. At its center sits a table, and around that table are gathered the most powerful humans in existence, the members of the United Earth Council, the supreme governing body of human civilization.
There are 12 of them, representing the major regions and power blocks of their species. They range in age from middle-aged to elderly, and their faces carry the weight of the decisions they have made and the decisions still to come. Admiral Okonkwo stands among them, along with Commander Chen and several other military leaders I have met during my time among the humans. And at the head of the table sits a woman I have not seen before. She is old, ancient by human standards, with white hair and deep lines carved into her face. But her eyes are sharp, alert, filled with an intelligence that seems to pierce through pretense and evasion. She wears a simple gray uniform, unadorned except for a single symbol on her collar, a stylized image of Earth circled by stars.
"Remembrancer Voresian," she says, and her voice is surprisingly strong. "I am Director Helena Vasquez, Chair of the United Earth Council. Thank you for joining us."
I perform the formal greeting gesture. Director Vasquez, I am honored by the invitation, though I confess I do not understand its purpose.
The purpose is simple. She gestures to a seat that has been prepared for my anatomy. We are about to undertake the most significant military operation in human history. We wanted you to understand why. I settle into the seat, my mind racing. Why me? I am a historian, a remembrancer. I have no military authority, no political power. You are a witness, Vasquez says. Whatever happens in the coming months, someone must remember it. Someone must record it, analyze it, and pass it on to future generations. We are a young species, Remembrancer. We do not have your people's gift for preserving history across millennia. We need you to do for us what we cannot do for ourselves. The weight of her words settles over me. I think of the 17,000 Valkyrie refugees scattered across human space, the last remnants of a civilization that once spanned 17 star systems. I think of the billions who died on Valkyrie Prime, whose stories will never be told because there is no one left to tell them. And I think of the humans,
these strange, brilliant, terrifying beings, preparing to throw themselves against an enemy that has devoured 11 civilizations without slowing down.
I will remember, I say quietly. I will bear witness. I will ensure that whatever happens here is not forgotten.
Vasquez nods, and something that might be gratitude flickers across her ancient face. Then let us begin. Current estimates put the devouring fleet at approximately 240 billion units, Admiral Okonkwo says. They have consumed 4 additional star systems since the initial detection, absorbing the resources and biomass to fuel further expansion. At their current rate of advance, they will reach our outer defenses in 63 days.
240 billion. The number has grown since I last heard it. It will continue to grow.
What is our strength? One of the council members asks, a man with Asian features and a calm, analytical expression. 12,700 capital ships, Okonkwo replies. 47,000 support vessels, 800 billion autonomous combat units, 215 orbital defense platforms, and, she pauses, the Prometheus array.
A murmur runs through the room. I do not understand its significance, but I see the effect it has on the assembled humans. Some look relieved, others look troubled, a few look almost reverent.
The Prometheus array, Vasquez says quietly, is the culmination of a century of research and development. It is, in essence, a network of weapons platforms distributed across our entire solar system, linked by faster-than-light communication and powered by quantum singularity generators. Each platform is capable of delivering extinction-level firepower to any point within the network's range.
I stare at her. Extinction level?
We do not build weapons to wound, she says, and there is something almost gentle in her voice. We build weapons to end wars. The devouring cannot be negotiated with. It cannot be contained. It can only be destroyed, utterly and completely. That is what the Prometheus array is designed to do.
And if it fails?
Vasquez meets my gaze, and I see in her eyes the same hardness I saw in Commander Chen, the same ancient resolve, the same willingness to face oblivion without flinching.
She stands, and the other council members stand with her.
That is the human way, Remembrancer. We do not go quietly into extinction. We rage against it. We fight it with every fiber of our being. And when the darkness comes, she pauses, and a fierce smile crosses her weathered face. We make sure it remembers us.
I am moved to a command ship, the Sol Invictus, the flagship of the human fleet, where I am given quarters near the Strategic Operations Center. From there, I watch as humanity prepares for its greatest test.
The mobilization is total. Across human space, civilians are evacuated from outer colonies, resources are stockpiled, and final preparations are made. There is fear. I see it in the faces of the crew members who pass me in the corridors, but there is also something else. Determination, unity, a shared sense of purpose that transcends individual differences.
I think of the Valkyrie and how we fragmented in the face of the devouring. The Grand Council dissolved into factions, each pursuing its own survival strategy, each unwilling to sacrifice for the greater whole. We fell not because we lacked strength, but because we lacked unity. We could not bring ourselves to become more than the sum of our parts.
The humans are different.
They argue, they debate, they disagree on countless matters, but when the crisis comes, they close ranks. They become a single organism, a unified will directed toward a common goal. It is beautiful in its way, and terrifying.
On the 37th day, the devouring fleet crosses into human-claimed space.
Contact confirmed, the sensor officer announces, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what she is reporting. 253 billion devouring units entering Sector 7. Advanced elements will reach the outer defense perimeter in approximately 14 hours.
Admiral Okonkwo stands at the center of the bridge, surrounded by her staff. She studies the display with calm eyes, her hands clasped behind her back. Signal all fleet elements. Execute Protocol Prometheus, Stage 1. All ships to combat stations.
The order ripples outward at the speed of light, and the human fleet begins to move. 12,000 capital ships, arranged in a formation that spans the width of the solar system, activate their drives and take their positions. Autonomous combat units, billions of them, swarm out from carrier bays and assembly stations, forming a vast cloud of mechanical warriors. Orbital platforms come online, their weapons charging with energies that make the stars themselves seem dim.
And at the heart of it all, invisible to sensors, but humming with barely contained power, the Prometheus array awakens.
Prometheus array at full capacity, a technician reports. All platforms nominal. Firing solutions calculated for incoming fleet mass.
Hold fire, Okonkwo says. Let them come closer. I want them deep inside the array's effective radius before we engage. I watch, fascinated and horrified as the devouring advances. The swarm moves with a terrible beauty, billions of units flowing through space like a living tide, consuming everything in their path. Asteroids are broken down for resources, dust clouds are absorbed. Even the void itself seems to darken as they pass, as though the light is being swallowed by their hunger. Hours pass. The swarm grows closer, and still the human fleet holds its position, waiting. They're testing us, Commander Chen says. She stands beside me, watching the display with an expression I cannot read. Probing our defenses, analyzing our formations. They remember what happened 70 years ago. They're not going to make the same mistakes.
Will it matter? She glances at me, and a small smile crosses her face. Ask me in 12 hours.
The devouring attacks at the 9th hour. A wave of units, perhaps 10 billion in all, breaks away from the main fleet and surges toward the human lines. They move with terrifying speed, accelerating to velocities that should be impossible, crossing the gulf of space in minutes rather than hours. Their approach is not random. It is calculated, precise, targeted at what they perceive as weak points in the human formation.
They are wrong.
First wave engaging outer perimeter, the tactical officer announces. Defense platforms activating.
The display erupts with light. Across the solar system, human weapons open fire, not with the primitive kinetic weapons that the devouring expected, but with technologies that should not exist. Antimatter beams slice through space, vaporizing millions of units in a single sweep. Gravitational lensing arrays focus stellar energy into concentrated bursts that shatter asteroid-sized creatures like glass.
Quantum disruptors tear at the fabric of reality itself, creating zones of instability that consume everything they touch. The devouring wave falters. Units die by the billions, their bodies reduced to atoms, their distributed consciousness screaming in frequencies that even human sensors can detect. For a moment, just a moment,
The swarm seems to hesitate.
Then it adapts. The second wave is larger, faster, more dispersed. The units spread out, making themselves harder to target, and they change their composition, absorbing materials from the void that reflect or absorb the human weapons. Some of them develop countermeasures, living electromagnetic shields, reactive armor that hardens on impact, weapons of their own that strike back at the defense platforms.
A human station dies, then another. The first capital ship is lost, a carrier called the Valiant, overwhelmed by a concentrated assault that breaks through its defenses and consumes it from within. I watch on the display as 7,000 human crew members cease to exist, absorbed into the devouring's biomass.
Casualties mounting, the tactical officer reports, her voice still steady. Outer perimeter at 63% integrity. Enemy losses estimated at 31 billion units.
31 billion. An incomprehensible number. And yet the devouring still has more than 200 billion remaining, and it is still advancing.
They're learning, Okonkwo says quietly. They're adapting faster than projected.
"We anticipated this, Admiral," one of her aides replies. "The secondary protocols—"
I know. She takes a deep breath. Initiate Stage 2. Deploy the Achilles swarms.
New icons appear on the display, vast clouds of smaller signatures emerging from hidden positions throughout the system. The Achilles swarms are human autonomous combat units, machines designed to match the devouring's adaptability with adaptability of their own. Each unit is a masterpiece of artificial intelligence and nanoscale engineering, capable of learning from combat experience and adjusting its tactics in real time.
The swarms converge on the devouring, and the battle transforms. It is no longer a conflict between fleets, it is a war of evolution, a contest to see which side can adapt faster. The devouring units develop new weapons, the Achilles units develop countermeasures. The Achilles units find vulnerabilities, the devouring units close them. The struggle plays out across millions of individual engagements, each one contributing data to the vast machine learning networks that guide both forces. Hours pass. The casualties mount on both sides. The outer defense perimeter collapses, then the secondary line, then the tertiary. The devouring pushes deeper into human space, driven by a hunger that knows no satisfaction. For every unit that dies, 10 more seem to take its place, fed by the resources they have consumed along the way.
And still, humanity fights.
I watch Admiral Okonkwo as the battle rages. Her face is calm, her voice steady, but I can see the toll it is taking. Each lost ship represents thousands of lives, friends, colleagues, children of friends and colleagues. Each fallen station is a wound in the fabric of human civilization. She carries the weight of every death on her shoulders, and she does not waver.
"Admiral," a communications officer says, "the devouring main body is entering the inner perimeter. They'll reach the Prometheus array's primary kill zone in 47 minutes.
Okonkwo nods. Signal the fleet. All remaining ships fall back to defensive positions around the array, and get me a direct line to Director Vasquez. It's time.
The display shifts, showing a new perspective, the inner solar system, with Earth at its center. The human fleet is regrouping, forming a dense sphere around the Prometheus array's core platforms. Beyond them, the devouring surges forward, over 100 billion units still active, despite the staggering losses they have suffered.
Director Vasquez's face appears on a secondary display. She is in a bunker somewhere on Earth, surrounded by staff, but her eyes are fixed on the camera as though she can see through it to the bridge of the Sol Invictus.
Admiral Okonkwo, are we ready?
As ready as we'll ever be, Director.
Then do it. Vasquez's voice is quiet, but it carries the weight of 10 billion human souls. Show them what we are.
Okonkwo turns to her tactical officer. Initiate Protocol Prometheus, Final Stage. Authorization Code Sol Invictus. Fire. And the universe changes.
I have seen wonders in my 412 cycles of life. I have watched stars die and be reborn. I have walked on worlds that orbited black holes where time itself flowed differently. I have communed with artificial intelligences that spanned solar systems, and I have touched the edges of dimensions that mortal minds were never meant to comprehend.
But I have never seen anything like the Prometheus array.
The first sign is the light. Across the solar system, in perfect synchronization, thousands of platforms ignite with energies that outshine the sun. For a single, eternal moment, the void is bright as noon, a blazing radiance that burns away shadows and illuminates the approaching devouring in pitiless detail.
And then the weapons fire.
They are not beams or projectiles or conventional explosives. They are something else, something that the human scientists have spent a century developing, refining, perfecting for exactly this moment. They are, in essence, directed entropy, focused streams of fundamental force that accelerate the decay of matter and energy, that impose upon their targets a future in which they simply cease to exist.
The effect is instantaneous and total. The devouring units caught in the initial barrage do not explode or burn or fragment. They simply stop. One moment they are there, vast and terrible and hungry. The next moment, there is nothing but empty space where they used to be. No debris, no radiation, no trace that they ever existed. 10 billion units vanish in the first second, 20 billion in the second. The Prometheus array fires again and again, each salvo erasing another swath of the devouring from existence. The swarm tries to adapt, spreading out, diving deeper into the array's structure, throwing everything it has at the platforms in a desperate attempt to destroy them. But it is too late. The humans have spent a century building this trap, and the devouring has walked directly into it.
I watch, frozen, as the tide of battle reverses. The devouring, the unstoppable force that has consumed 11 civilizations, that burned Velkari Prime to ash, that seemed as inevitable as entropy itself, is being destroyed. Not defeated, not repelled, destroyed, erased from the universe as though it never existed. 50 billion units remain, then 30 billion, then 10. The swarm's coherence begins to fragment as its distributed consciousness is torn apart, vast sections of its mind suddenly going dark. It tries to retreat, pulling back toward the outer system, but the human fleet pursues. Ships that were on the defensive moments ago now surge forward, hunting down the fleeing remnants with a precision and fury that is almost beautiful. By the time the last devouring unit is destroyed, a carrier-class organism the size of a small moon, torn apart by a concentrated barrage from 3 human dreadnoughts, the battle has lasted 18 hours. 18 hours to defeat a force that conquered 11 civilizations over 3 centuries. 18 hours to change the balance of power in the galaxy forever.
In the aftermath, there is silence.
I stand on the observation deck of the Sol Invictus, staring out at the stars. The void is full of debris now, fragments of destroyed ships, both human and devouring, drifting in the solar wind. The Prometheus array's platforms are still glowing faintly, their vast reserves of energy slowly dissipating back into the background radiation of the cosmos.
Commander Chen finds me there, as I knew she would.
It's over, she says quietly. The main fleet is destroyed. There are scattered remnants in other systems, but without the central consciousness to guide them, they'll fragment and become dormant. The devouring is finished.
I do not turn from the viewport. How many did you lose?
87,000 personnel, 412 ships, 23 orbital platforms. Her voice is heavy with the weight of it. Each one a tragedy, each one a cost we will carry forever.
And yet you won.
Yes, we won!
I finally turned to face her. Why did you show me all of this, Commander? Why let me witness your preparations, your strategies, your hidden strength? I am a member of a species that dismissed you for over a century. I have no claim on your trust.
She is silent for a long moment, considering her words. When she speaks, her voice is soft.
Because you needed to understand, she says. Not just you, all of you. The surviving Valkyrie, the other species watching from the galactic margins, everyone who ever looked at humanity and saw only primitives stumbling in the dark. She moves to stand beside me at the viewport. We're not what you thought we were. We never were. But we couldn't prove it until now. We couldn't show you what we really are until we had no other choice.
And what are you, Commander? What is humanity, truly?
She turns to look at the stars, the same stars that have watched countless civilizations rise and fall, indifferent to their struggles and their triumphs.
We're survivors, she says. That's what we've always been. Not the strongest, not the smartest, not the most advanced, just survivors. We come from a world that tried to kill us at every turn, and we refused to die. We fought each other, yes, brutally, stupidly, for reasons that seem absurd in hindsight. But we also learned. We adapted. We became something more than we were, because the alternative was extinction.
She pauses, and when she continues, her voice is barely above a whisper. The devouring looked at us and saw prey. They saw a young species, fractured and limited, clinging to a single system in a vast and hostile galaxy. They thought we would be easy. They thought we would fall like all the others fell. She turns to meet my eyes, and I see in her gaze the same fire I saw in Director Vasquez, the same ancient resolve that burns at the heart of this impossible species.
It is strong, unimaginably, terrifyingly strong, because it has learned the one lesson that the universe keeps trying to teach, that nothing is given, nothing is promised, and nothing is permanent. That the only way to survive is to be ready for anything, and to never, ever, ever stop fighting.
I am silent, processing her words. I think of my own people, the Valkyrie, with our 11,000 years of history and our 17 star systems and our unshakable confidence. I think of how quickly we fell when the darkness came. I think of the lessons we never learned, the preparations we never made, the unity we never achieved. And I think of the humans, this young, chaotic, contradictory species who did all the things we should have done, who prepared, who unified, who built their armadas in secret and trained their soldiers in shadow and never once believed that the universe owed them safety.
They are remarkable. They are terrifying, and they are perhaps exactly what the galaxy needs.
What happens now? I ask.
No, she agrees. We won't. That's not who we are. We're humans. We endure, we adapt, we overcome. And when the universe sends something to destroy us,
She turns to face me one last time, and her eyes hold the fire of 1 billion souls who have faced oblivion and refused to yield.
We destroy it first.
I am Ferial Voresian, third remembrancer of the Vilcari ascendancy, and I have lived for 412 standard cycles. In that time, I have seen wonders and horrors beyond measure. I have witnessed the fall of my own civilization and the near extinction of my people. I have watched the galaxy tremble before the devouring, and I have watched it saved by a species that we dismissed as primitive, as violent, as insignificant.
We were wrong.
The humans are not primitive. They are evolved, not in the biological sense, but in the ways that matter. They have been forged by a world that gave them nothing, and they have become something that the galaxy has never seen before. They are survivors, they are fighters, they are builders and dreamers and stubborn, impossible optimists who refuse to accept that anything is beyond their reach.
And they were holding back. For 1.5 centuries, while we pitied them and dismissed them and ignored them, they were preparing, building, growing, becoming something more than they appeared to be. They did not show us their true strength because they did not trust us. And why should they? We gave them nothing but condescension. We offered them nothing but our assumption of superiority. We never once considered that we might be wrong about them.
But when the crisis came, when the devouring threatened not just humanity, but all life in the galaxy, they stopped holding back. They revealed what they truly are, and the results were absolute. The devouring is gone. The threat that consumed 11 civilizations has been erased from the universe. And humanity stands at the center of a galaxy that will never look at them the same way again. Some will fear them. Some will resent them. Some will try to challenge them, to test the limits of their power, to see if they can be brought low by cleverer or older or more numerous foes.
They will fail. They will all fail. Because they do not understand what I now understand, what the devouring learned too late, what every adversary humanity has ever faced has eventually learned.
You cannot break a species that is already broken. You cannot defeat a people who have learned that defeat is not an option. You cannot extinguish a fire that has been burning for 10,000 years, fed by every hardship, every tragedy, every near-extinction event that should have ended them but only made them stronger.
The humans are not special because they are powerful. They are powerful because they are special, because they never gave up, never accepted limits, never stopped fighting for their existence in a universe that wanted them dead. And now, at last, the universe knows what they are.
I stand at my viewport and watch the stars, and I think of the future, a future that will be shaped by human hands, guided by human will, protected by human strength. It is not the future the Vilcari expected. It is not the future anyone expected. But it is a future that exists, a future that was saved by a species that once knew nothing but their own small world, their own internal struggles, their own desperate fight for survival.
Earth stopped holding back. The results were absolute.
And the galaxy will never be the same.
The end.